Hey there, welcome back to the podcast. So today I'm going to be interviewing one of our powerhouse clients, Heather O'Donnell. And here's what I love about Heather's story. I always bring people on because I always say like success leaves clues, right? Why are we working so hard to figure out how to get to the next level? Like just look around. Like there are people out there modeling what needs to be done. And Heather has a tutoring business, specializing in certain. I'm not even going to say it. Like I know dyslexia is one. She'll share it in a minute, but she has these different specialties, and I'll tell you a few things. She's niche. She loves what she does. She loves who she serves. You will hear her talk about these children over and over and over. She doesn't talk about making money. She doesn't talk about like it's just the way she is attacking like this business and how she is just loving and supporting and all the things. She's in a position where you'll feel not bad for her, but there's all different ways. She is like sold out and a wait list in her programs. And her problem is she can't find enough amazing teachers. Like she's just on the hunt for teachers versus needing more clients, more students. She's got them. She's got lots of them. But success leaves clues. And if you want to know how to build out a business, a program that is sold out with a wait list where you literally say to somebody, I don't know when I can serve you. I'll let you know when I can. Like that is where Heather is. You're going to want to hear how she did it, what her business looks like, and just listen to who she is and how she's done it because success leaves clues. All right. Enjoy this episode. Heather, welcome to the show. I am so excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Stacey. I'm really, really excited to be here.
I'm looking forward to our conversation. So Heather, obviously I know you well, but my listeners may not. So can you explain a little bit about your business? And I would love to hear your story of how you got started and just all the things.
Sure. So I own Paltz Multi-sensory, which is an online and in-person tutoring practice. And we work with children who have dyslexia, dyscalculia, and dysgraphia. And those are the three common learning disabilities for reading, writing, and math. And we work with kids who just need a little bit of a boost. They don't necessarily have a diagnosis. They just need a little extra help, especially coming out of the last couple of years that we've all come out of.
Yes.
So
what inspired you to like start that? I mean, it's a very niche type of business. So what inspired you to start that?
So I've always felt like I have two passions in education. I'm very passionate about supporting students with autism, and I'm very passionate about supporting students with dyslexia. And I left the classroom as a K-2 autism classroom teacher. So I was working with self-contained students between kindergarten and second grade. And I loved it. It was intense, and the kids were wonderful, but it was intense. It took a lot of work and it took a lot of materials. And after a certain point, the job was also paired with a long commute. I started to feel like I was used up by the time I got home. And as a parent of a child with special needs, I started to feel like that wasn't very fair. So in 2018, I made the decision to leave the classroom. And a few things happened, and September rolled around and I was like, I don't really have a job lined up. So I decided to create my own. So I could think of myself as the accidental entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I am a certified dyslexia practitioner. So I was like, okay, we're going to go with dyslexia. We're going to give autism a little break for right now. And we're going to go with dyslexia. And I opened up my practice, and it was me, a solopreneur sitting in a little office in downtown New Paltz. But I was the first in my area to open something like this, and people started to come. And now down the road, 4 years later, I'm very proud that we do work with kids who have autism and other learning needs, who often find it hard to receive dyslexia help, because often dyslexia is paired with other learning challenges and other diagnoses. So it's a mark of pride for our practice that we do work with kids who have multiple things going on, not just strictly dyslexia or dyscalculia.
Okay, great. So, it's been only 4 years and you've gone through a pandemic, which is not usually, something you have to experience when you're first starting a business, but I know you are doing well and you have quite a few kids. How did you get started, and why do you feel like it took off?
Well, I think, we are one of the strange niches where the pandemic helped us. I mean, business boomed, all of a sudden schools closed, parents were panicking. And that first spring, I came home, I set up a home office in my dining room, And I taught from 9 to 5, like kid after kid after kid.
Wow.
And I just, I hate to say no to families when they need help,
Yeah.
but it was a lot. And I was like, I can either keep doing this or I can hire a team. So after a few months of sitting at my dining room table, teaching kid after kid after kid,
Yeah.
I decided to hire a team so that I didn't have to say no to families. And
Yeah.
then it kind of grew from there. A couple tutors came on that first summer of 2020. That went well. We took on more families and things have sort of grown and expanded from there. But it was definitely, I think, across the country, when schools closed, suddenly parents were like, what's happening now? Parents were also seeing what was going on for their kid at home in a way that they'd never
Yeah.
seen before. Suddenly they're watching their kid do their schoolwork through online school. And we had a lot of families who would come to us and say, I'm suddenly seeing that my child is struggling with math or struggling with reading in a way I've never noticed before.
Wow. So interesting. That's crazy. Okay. Um, I have like a gazillion different questions I could ask just off of that. But I do think you're right. Like you were very clear on who you were serving, and I think that helped. It also was a situation where what was going on in the world really did benefit you for sure. Now, you had just said it was you 9 to 5 all day. Were you ever thinking, I just want this to be me? Like before it was exhausting, were you thinking, I can do this? This will be easy. I'll just work 9 to 5. Like, was that a thought in your head?
Um, I think there's still days where I'm like, it could just be me. Not really. No, it was a lot. Typically to really
Okay.
prepare for each student, I had to cut corners.
Okay.
I wasn't able to put my best self forward the way I wanted to.
Okay. So there was a moment where you were thinking, I'm going to need help.
Yes, it was
Okay.
either I'm going to have to say no to a lot of families, or I'm going
Okay.
to have to, bring people on to help me.
Yeah.
And I think pretty quickly, I wasn't necessarily comfortable with what I was doing to maintain that schedule of teaching. So I wanted to help more families. I don't like
Yeah.
to say no to families.
I love that, which I want people to hear that. Like success leaves clues. The things that Heather is saying, like you can hear her serving mindset and how much you feel called to do these things. I don't want people to hear this and be like, oh, wow, that's a great niche to get into. I should do that. It's like Heather feels that this is literally her mission in life. And she feels called to serve this specific community. That is not a coincidence that that business is blowing up for her, right? I just want people to hear that, because I think sometimes we so focus on, man, I should have picked a better niche. I should have picked a niche that had more money, or that could have done this. And oh, that sounds like a good, like maybe I should switch. And it's just like you can make money in anything you do, but when you really find where you're meant to be, who you're meant to serve, I think you find out how to be way resourceful in all the other areas that start to get hard, because you really are passionate about that. So I hear that from you, and I know you so well that I want people to understand like that piece of it as well. Now, when you finally did decide you're going to have to hire, who did you hire? What position?
I hired other tutors to help me
Okay.
so that we could support more families. I looked for, and I still do look for, tutors who are certified.
Okay.
Because, yes, relating to what you were just saying, Stacy, it takes up to a year and thousands of dollars to go through the training program that we use. It's not a quick fix. It's not something,
Yeah.
you have to really want to do it, and you have to be committed to that work. So I reached out in a few of the Facebook groups that I belong to in the online communities, and I found some great people, and, I interviewed them and they came on board. And initially it was all remote.
Okay.
I was working from home.
Yeah.
We didn't, we gave up the office.
Especially because it was in the pandemic. It was very normal for this to all be remote. So it didn't matter. Okay.
Exactly. Everyone was at home. It was the summer of 2020. Most people weren't going to many places.
Right.
So that's sort of where we started.
Okay.
I brought on tutors to help me so that I could reach more families and support more kids learning.
Yeah. Okay. Now you say tutors, plural. Did you really go out and hire more than one person right away? Or was it one and then a little bit? I want to hear that.
I did.
Okay, and it's totally fine. I am not saying this in a bad way. I just wanted to know, like, were you like, oh my goodness, we have such demand, I'm going to hire 2 people, or like, how many did you hire?
I hired 4 people
Okay.
that summer. I hired 4 people that summer. However, one was a working teacher, and it was purely a summer arrangement.
Yeah.
And the other 3 are still with me today.
Okay. Amazing. So, and it's okay for like, trust me, I'm not like looking for like, don't hire more than one person. I mean, there are some reasons you should be. And if you had that much demand, absolutely. But I just wanted to hear, sometimes it takes a while to hire one and then it takes a while to hire the second, but you knew you had the demand. So you went out and hired right away.
I did,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay, great. Can I ask you from that first ever hire? I mean, this was your first hire and now you've got 4 people in that summer. What was your biggest learning lesson, or maybe there's something you would want to tell somebody who's in your shoes about to do what you just did?
So I think when I think back to that first summer hiring, I started off preferring working teachers. That felt safer to me
Mm.
because it was a scary world, suddenly being someone's, boss, having employees, because I do have employees, I don't hire contractors. And I liked the security of working teachers who would not necessarily be dependent on me for
Oh,
everything.
okay.
Now down the road, it's too much for working teachers. Working teachers have a full-time job, and the
Yeah.
amount of time they can give, my practice, it's just led to problems. So we have more, not problems, but it leads
Yeah.
to
Oh,
overwhelm, it leads to overload for them, and it's not as good a fit.
yeah. Not
And I didn't know that.
sustainable. And now you're struggling replacing when they realize, oh, I can't do this.
Absolutely.
So, okay. So that's really interesting. So you had the thought, I don't want them to be being dependent on me. So you went and took a route that maybe you thought was safer, more secure, but then it ended up not being the best fit for you. That's
No.
interesting. Okay.
No.
And it's so funny because we have these thoughts because, especially for you at the time, it was new. You weren't sure. You had never done this. So I think just really being aware of like, where is that thought coming from? What is triggering it? What is kind of, bringing it to the forefront? And now you see that, whereas in the beginning, there's no way you could have seen it because your brain was saying, this is a big responsibility. And what if I can't pay them? And all the things. So really good. Somebody listening definitely needed to hear that. So thank you for sharing that. Where do you feel like, I mean, you are definitely growing. Now you're in a physical location again. When did you decide to bring back the location?
We came back, we opened up an office again last spring. I signed the lease last May. So, the world was sort of shifting again,
Yeah.
and in-person school was happening again. And we definitely have, again, because we actively look to support kids with different things going on, we have families that really want in-person learning, and
Yeah.
they find their child, the online learning doesn't work for them.
Okay.
So I signed the lease, and then last May, and then as the summer developed, I worked out an arrangement with a local co-working space to put tutors in for overflow space.
Oh, great.
Then we did that for a few months. And then this winter, it was, we were just overwhelming them. So, now we've just opened a new office where
So
we
you
can.
have this is such a good problem to have, right? It's like you're overwhelming the people you're renting from of like, yeah, you're too busy. You can't come here. Like you're going to have to leave. We thought you were going to do this like once in a while. It's like, this is a real thing. Right.
Yeah.
But people also need to hear, you've got one side of somebody who starts a business who's thinking, I wish this would go faster. Why can't I grow? Why can't I do this? But then there's the other side of like, you're growing so quickly, you have different types of problems, right? So it's just really interesting to see one extreme to the next.
Absolutely. I mean, when I first approached the co-working space, I was like, oh, maybe it'll be a tutor, maybe it'll be 2 tutors. And then it was like, nope, now it's 4 tutors, 2 afternoons a week, for 3 hours. And they were just kind of, rightfully so. They were like, we're running out of space.
Yeah.
And, I got it.
So you have this in-person, in-location, on-site space that people can come to, but you also have this virtual option for anybody really anywhere to jump on virtually and do this. There's a lot of people that are in this situation of like, could I add on this second stream of income and be virtual and nationwide? What have you learned from that? Has it been difficult? Does it feel like 2 businesses? Like anything you can share, because this is a big thing that pops up for especially brick and mortars thinking, should I add online? Or somebody who is online thinking like, well, it'd be kind of nice to have our own space, or to sometimes like legitimize the business and have our own physical location. So what can you share about that?
I mean, I think it was just so interesting with the pandemic. We started, again, a very traditional tutoring practice, me sitting in the little office. And then the pandemic happened. It was like, okay, now I'm not sitting in an office. Now I'm at my dining room table. I don't know. We've managed to build both equally, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, I would even say the in-person side is smaller right now. The online is
Virtual.
yeah, the
Okay.
virtual. You know, we have families. I have 4 tutors that come and provide in-person services and things like that. But again, it's a couple hours, a couple afternoons a week, whereas the bulk of our clients are online and are virtual. So I think, but I also think COVID really changed
Yeah.
teaching and tutoring. You
Okay.
know, before COVID, someone tutoring online was sort of unusual. Like I used to do it when families would go on vacation, but it wasn't like a thing. And then with COVID, suddenly now there are all these online tutoring practices and things like that. It really kind of took off. So I think it was sort of a mix of all the things happening at once.
Yeah.
But at this point, you know, they are, I guess, parallel businesses, but they
And they're
are.
working for you. Like you're not telling anybody like just focus on one. You're saying you can do both.
Yes, we can
Okay.
do both. And at
Love
this
it.
point, you know, at times one will wait list, whereas the other might have space. And then, you know, so that works out well if the people are local to New Paltz. If they're not local to New Paltz and we're waitlisting for online, that doesn't work as well.
Yeah. Right. Right. Cause they could temporarily do virtual if they, okay. That makes so much sense. No, I love that. And it's good to hear like somebody maybe that isn't a brick and mortar situation of like, should I start online? Is that going to be super hard? Is it going to make it more difficult? But with what you're saying, like there's definitely pros and cons always, but it sounds like it has been a good move for you. And especially if the virtual is even bigger than in person, that helps when you're busting at the seams in the actual physical building.
Yeah. And I mean, we have the same parent policies, whether you're online or virtual.
Yeah.
So there's that kind of crossover, you know, we're not necessarily coming up with a separate set of policies for the in-person families versus, you know, so there's overlap in terms of that. I think if someone were trying to open up another business stream and it meant a whole new set of policies and things, that's where you're like, oh, that's a lot of work.
For sure. So when you're looking for staffing, and I know it's difficult for you because like you said, you don't just pluck people off the street and like teach them how to do this in 5 minutes. You're expecting them to be certified and they've come from like this background. Can those people be nationwide? Can you get them from anywhere?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I usually approach, you know, when someone expresses interest, I usually say, I need a certain number of hours right now, ideally 6 hours a week in the Eastern Standard Time Zone from 4 to 6 p.m. because those are our bulk hours. Those are when families, you know, most families don't want Friday. Yeah, but Monday through Thursday, I need at least 4 to 6 hours because that's like our prime time. If you live in the mountain zone and, you know, that's like 1 o'clock in the afternoon for you, it works out really well. You know, there's definitely, you know, there's a lot of flexibility again with this change virtual teaching that there wasn't before.
Right.
But we center sort of what we need in the Eastern Standard Time Zone because that's where the bulk of our families are. And as long as someone can meet that.
Right. And once you continue to grow nationwide, which you've been spreading, all of a sudden there becomes the need for every time zone to be available between like 4 and 6 or whatever that is. So that's exciting too, to know like there's room for growth there as well.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, cool. What was like, how do I say this? What was maybe a scary decision, an intimidating decision, something that you've had to make in the last 4 years? And like, what did you end up doing?
Probably the decision to hire was probably the scariest because I really, you know, on the one hand, I wanted to help more families. I don't like saying no, but I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be someone's boss. Do I know how to be someone's boss?
Right.
You know me, I'm a very quiet person. Like there's been a big learning curve with how to, you know, step into more of that role. And it's an ongoing process. I'm certainly not going to pretend I've mastered it, but I think that was sort of the biggest scary thing. Besides, I guess maybe taking the leap to open the practice altogether.
Yeah, right.
You know, I just kind of woke up one day and was like, okay, I guess I'll do this. And, you know, I had the support of my family and which was awesome.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's worked out. It's panned out and I love it. But yeah, I think I just kind of took leaps without really thinking it through. I think if I had thought these things through more, I might not have done them. I just might have been like, maybe not.
So somebody listening who's thinking, I need to hire, I don't know if I should hire or whatever that is, like taking that big leap. You're saying you weren't in this place where you would have said, oh, I'm ready to go. I've mastered this, but you were willing to jump in without it being mastered. How did you convince yourself of like, I can do this? Like, how did you drop like that perfectionist mentality to just do something? Because people listening, for sure, there are some people who can't, they're just like, I'm not ready yet. I'm not there yet. They are thinking through it a gazillion times and they're stuck. What made you get through it and just push through?
In retrospect, these are very uncharacteristic decisions for me. So I don't even honestly know. I just kind of, it's the end of August 2018 rolled around. I was like, I don't want to be bored. I have this certification. I love working with kids. I have a lot of materials from the classroom. I was like, I'm just going to do this. And, it started slow. The first year I had another stream of income. I worked for our local school district and I provided multi-sensory reading services as a contractor at a local private school. And then by year 2, I was getting too busy for that even. And then that was sort of falling by the wayside and things like that. So I definitely, there were some measures in place, but it's a very needed resource that has not traditionally been in this area where I live. And now, now 4 years later, people are learning about us and we get referrals and things like that. But I think at the time, I still run into people at the grocery store who are like, oh, I wish you were around when my kid was little. And, we would have needed us.
Right. Now they realize like this could have been needed and right. They had it, but they didn't know.
So I think it was timing and an uncharacteristic move.
Well, okay. But I get what you're saying. It's like uncharacteristic of you to make these big leaps, but there was a thought driving it. So you might have had a thought of like, this isn't totally my skill set. I haven't really mastered this, but there was a thought that beat that thought. Do you see what I'm saying? Like you would never have done it if a thought didn't outweigh but I don't know if I really know how to hire, or I don't really know if I know how to do this. Like what was the thought? Like, was it just like, maybe I'll try this? Like, maybe I can do it? Or was it like, I think I can do this?
Gotcha. I wasn't done working with kids and I wanted to do it on my own.
Okay. Like that's it. Yeah. So, okay. So there's always a thought driving the action. So your thought was, I wasn't done doing this. Like your brain was basically saying, oh, this is so good, Heather. Okay. So your brain was basically saying, I'm not done. I'm going to find a way. So you did something what you keep saying, like, this is where I was confused with what you were saying. Like it was uncharacteristic of you. Right. And I'm like, no, I don't think it was, but because it was just not the way you had been doing it, but really your character is serve these children. And you were doing that. It was just not in the way you had normally been doing it.
Yes, you're right. Absolutely.
Oh, I just love it. So good. Well, and that's the thing. When people are stuck, it's because they're thinking the wrong thought, right? And I'm just like looking at the way that you've been thinking. And I know you well, where you might even say a negative thing, but you usually very quickly fix that negative. You'll say it and then you're like, but I should be thinking that, like, like you're very aware. And I think that's another one of those like success leaves clues of you keep trying to find the right thought to get you to keep going, right? Even when hiring is hard and you haven't found a perfect, like not a perfect, but a great tutor to bring in and it's like, you'll sit with it for a second and then you find a positive way of still like, but she's out there and I'm going to keep looking and we're going to do it. Like, we'll figure it out. And I love that. Okay. So where do you go from here? Like you're in year 4, things are going well. What are you envisioning? What are you hoping for? What are you working on? Anything like that?
We have some exciting projects. At least I think they're exciting in the works. We are working on a multi-sensory math course for tutor, and not even course, like a workshop series for parents. So that parents, we had someone reach out and they, they were like, I want tools that I can use at home to help my child with their math homework. Tutoring isn't an option for me right now. And I love that idea. So one of my math tutors has developed an online, we're going to deliver it in person first, and then we're hoping to move it online so that it has more of a reach that sort of walks parents through the understandings of multisensory math, provides materials that they can use to supplement their child's learning at home. So that is coming out at the end of this month and into June. Is
that recorded live, but then will be pre-recorded for anybody to jump in and buy it at any time?
I think we're going to run it live and I'm going to work out the kinks and figure that out. And then we're going to record it separately because I have another online tutor who's not local to New Paltz who's really excited about it too. So take over and offer it remotely as well.
And knowing that your staffing situation, it's limited. Like it's not where, like, right, we said you just hire anybody and train them. It's a process. That is a great option eventually when you've worked out the kinks to go, we've just multiplied that person's time because now it's a course or it's a program and anybody can buy it. So I think that's really exciting to be able to have something like that in the works as well.
I'm really excited about it because I think one of the biggest things for me in continuing to work with children on my terms is trying to make the learning and the training that we have more accessible for families. I mean,
Mm.
tutoring is expensive. There is no way around that.
Yeah.
And it's really important to me to try to give as many parents, homeschooling parents, parents who are seeing the deficits their kids are coming home with, as much of an opportunity to DIY, do it themselves as
Yeah.
possible, because there are kids out there. There's so many kids out there struggling with basic
Yeah.
skills like reading, writing, and math. And sometimes they're going under the radar in busy classrooms
Right.
through no one's fault, but it still leads to a frustrating situation for the child.
Yeah.
So we have that in the works. And then we also have an exciting collaboration on a teacher's time management for teachers course
Mm.
with a time management specialist, Megan
Amazing.
Squirrel, that's coming
Yep.
out this fall that we're working on. And I'm really excited about that because myself as a poster child, teachers
Oh, yes.
have busy schedules. We're trying to do the family thing. We're trying to do the work thing. We're trying to take care of kids. And
Yeah.
I really think I've learned so much about options in managing my schedule, and I still have more to go. But I think so many times teachers are quietly struggling. And I'm
Yeah.
hoping that with Megan's expertise, we can, help some teachers find some tools so that 22-23 will be the best school year yet.
I love it. So good. You have I'm really excited to see like where this all goes and what happens next. So let's say somebody listening, I know it's not my typical like listener. I shouldn't say that. My typical listener is like the entrepreneur, right? But there's parents listening and somebody might be thinking, whoa, my child has one of the things you just said. And this is actually interesting for them. Where would they go find your company right now online?
They can come find us at our website, I can't even say that, www.newpaltzmultisensory.com. And Paltz is spelled Palz. It's an old German Dutch name. And we are on Instagram and we are on Facebook and Pinterest, all under New Paltz Multi-sensory. And we have a teacher pay teacher store as well. So that's
Okay,
another project
amazing.
that's going on as well.
Another one. Yeah, really cool. So we'll make sure to link that all as well so people can go find you. And in case anybody just knowing how you are blowing up and you are on the hunt for teachers as much as you are for students, if somebody listening, like who is your ideal person? Like what kind of certification do they have? Because maybe the person listening, their sister does that. You know what I mean? Their friend is doing that and would love to work for a company like you. So what kind of person are you looking for hiring?
Oh, great question. And yes, I get that all the time. Oh,
Right?
so-and-so's brothers,
What,
sisters.
for sure. That's why I'm like, who knows who's listening and it's virtual.
My ideal candidate would be a certified teacher, preferably a special ed teacher, because again, we want to make sure we're providing kids the support they need, even if they have autism or ADHD and other things like that.
Yeah.
And ideally, they would be Orton Gillingham certified through the Academy or an equivalent program, or we use the Wilson Reading System. And I would want someone who's certified at level 1 at the least. Although if someone who's certified through all 12 steps came along, I'd be thrilled.
Mm-hmm.
And for the right person, training can happen. We do have several tutors working through the practicum right now, but it is a requirement and it is a lot of work and it takes about a year to move through. So it's definitely the right person loves the opportunity and can't wait to dive in, but not
100%. Right. Well, and I think it's important for people to hear too, that I know you have this wait list and I know you have more demand than you can supply, but you have high standards and you are not just going to put anybody in the classroom and ruin your reputation, which is another reason I believe that you are doing so well, because people know that when they come to you, they can expect quality education for their loved one. Right. So I think again, like everything you're doing, like I hope people are picking up these little pieces because these little pieces add up to a big reason you're having so much success. So congrats to you. Thank you for coming on and sharing your story. I know somebody listening got inspired by this. So again, go check out Heather. Please share this with anybody that you know may be interested in checking out her academy or possibly working for it as well. So Heather, thanks for being here. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much, Stacey.